this idea of gift and responding to gift in the context of gratitude, which seems fitting, right? I don't think it's an accident that I've been asked to talk about gratitude the week before Thanksgiving. But I wanted to kind of get into this conversation on gratitude by just kind of telling a story. It's a story that happened to me in the year 2020. I'm sure we all have stories from 2020. We'll go back to 2020. Do you remember that year? Yeah, we probably all have stories from 2020. My story in 2020 begins at the beginning of March. We can go back there, right? At the beginning of March, we know where we are in the world and what's going on in the world. It was spring break here at Seton Hall, and my wife and I had taken a trip down to Mexico. We were staying at a resort down there. We don't do that all the time. Like in our 27 years of marriage, we've been twice to a resort in Mexico, but it's awesome. If you ever get a chance to do that, do that. If you get a spring break that you're free, you do it. It's great. We were down there and had the sniffles and then the cough, and then like some head stuff, and then had fever. It just felt rotten for about a day and a half. But I'm telling myself I can't be like one of the 5 people in the United States who has COVID, right? This isn't COVID. I still don't know if it's COVID. I just know I felt it. And I got over it pretty quickly and started feeling great. The sun kind of helped a lot. But I noticed something. I noticed that we were going to this resort, or we were at this resort, we were going to breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I felt like they were putting some funny spice in every single dish they served. And it was just making it taste horrible. The eggs had the spice in it, the salad had the spice in it, the drinks had the spice in it, the desserts had the spice in it. I kept complaining to my wife, I was like, what are they putting in this food that's making it taste horrible? And it was just absolutely atrocious. And she's like, I don't taste it. I don't know what it is. And so as disappointed as I was with how bad the food experience was for me at the resort, I was even more disappointed when I came home and realized they weren't putting anything in the food. There was actually something wrong with my taste. And there was something wrong with the smell. Because when I came home, that same spice, that same flavor followed me back. I was tasting it and everything I ate. So the good news, as the weeks went on, the good news is it got a little bit better with some foods. The bad news is it got a lot worse with others. And all of a sudden, I developed this just atrocious smell, or I had this odor that was just atrocious that was in my nostrils. And it affected my taste. And the only way I can describe it, it's something I've never experienced in my life, the only way I can describe it is if you just took something that was rotten and putrid and garbage and you set it on fire. And that's kind of what I was smelling. And that's what I was tasting. And I was particularly triggered by 5 things. There were 5, some things weren't as bad, some things I could kind of endure, but there were 5 things that were really triggering me. And it was coffee, and and the Agape latte, yeah. It was coffee that was triggering me. It was tuna fish. It was chicken when it was being cooked. It was cigarette smoke, and it was urine. Like those 5 things smelled identical to me. I couldn't distinguish at all. And it didn't smell like either one of those things. It wasn't like the tuna fish would smell like cigarette smoke. It was like they all smelled the same, this smell of putrid, rotten garbage that was set on fire. And it tastes like that too. I didn't taste the cigarette smoke. But it just smelled like that, and it just began to haunt me. Like I couldn't escape it. And I would be walking down the street, and I'd be like, there's a smell. There's a smell. And I would notice I just walked by Starbucks and the door would open. I mean, just something as faint as the door of a Starbucks opening, I'd be like, it does smell. We walk on the street, and I'd say, I smell it, I smell it, I smell it. And my wife would say, it's cigarette smoke. That's what I'm smelling cigarette smoke. But I was smelling the smell. I'd be in the bedroom, and I'd be like, oh dear God, what is that? And my wife would call from the kitchen, I opened a can of tuna, I'm sorry. I mean, it was that pervasive, it was that haunting. Walking in the halls of our building, I'd smell it, and our neighbors would be cooking chicken, right? So basically, it would truly follow me and haunt me. And it would affect my taste, right? You know how smell and taste are associated. It would affect my taste of coffee, and chicken, and tuna fish, of course, other dishes more likely. And I began to be a bit concerned as basically weeks stretched into months, and it wasn't going away. And 2 things you have to know. One, I love smells. I mean, I'm into smells. I put on some cologne before I came over here. I just like the way things smell. I like to smell good. I love our candles. I love coffee. I love the smell of coffee. I love chicken. I love the smell of chicken. Like there's a country music song that sings about the smell of someone frying chicken, and I just love that line. I'm like, yes, I love chicken. And I love cooking chicken. So like these things that I love, all of a sudden were just horrific to me. And then, as again, weeks turns into months, and I'm not kidding, months, I begin to think, is this the rest of my life? Like I've never had this experience in my 48 years at that point of living. Is this the rest of my life? Like I got a little panicked, right? And so I started seeing doctors, and I would go to an ear, nose, throat specialist, and they'd stick things up my nose, and they would look for infections. They'd put me on this treatment or that treatment, and it wouldn't go away. I began to think, there's something rotten that I'm smelling and tasting. Maybe I got a rotten tooth. Like maybe something in my mouth is just rotten. And I'd go to the dentist. And usually when you go to the dentist, you want them to find nothing wrong with your teeth. I was going saying, please tell me I've got a rotten tooth in there that you can take care of and this goes away. And they didn't find anything. And we get deep into the summer. It's July now, and that's probably 4 months or so since it's been going on, and there's no other sign. Again, at this point with COVID, it was you wouldn't smell anything, you wouldn't taste anything. So it was like if I wasn't smelling or tasting anything, I would think, well, I had COVID, and that's what I'm dealing with. But I was actually smelling something horrible and tasting something horrible. So then I say, well, the ENT doctor said, maybe there's something wrong with your brain. Like maybe there's something, misfiring up here. And so I went and got an MRI on my brain just to make sure that, there wasn't something messed up, wires crossed, something there. I don't know exactly what the MRIs would tell them, but I knew I had to get one. And so I go in to get this MRI scan done, and they have to inject me with some fluid to make the colors pop. Do you know what that is?
That's the chemical.
Oh,
It's a PET scan, right?
what is it?
PET scan?
Is it a CAT scan?
I think it's a PET scan.
Oh.
PET scan.
Okay. Yeah, well, whatever, they were having to inject me with something. They have to know this as far as injections go. I don't like needles. I don't think anybody likes needles. Right? We're not a fan of needles, but I can handle a shot. Adrian, I can handle like you want to put a shot in my arm, I'll be a man, I'll go in and I'll take it. I can handle shots. But there's something about the idea of something going into a vein in my body that just, And for that reason, I'm not one of those good Christians that give blood. I don't give blood. Like I can't imagine something coming out of my body. So anyway, I go in, and I'm explaining to the technician there at the MRI place. I said, listen, I just don't do well with this. You just have to God for both of this. And he was new, and he thought the best way to handle this is just to talk the patient through everything I'm doing. And so he starts talking about what we need to do is we need to find a good vein. We need to find a good vein that's going to work for it. And he's got this, this thing wrapped around my arm. He's trying to get popped, and he's doing this. We've got to find a good. If he said vein once, he said it 100 times, right? And so I'm sitting there, and I start to kind of get really, really anxious, really, really upset. Well, he thinks he's found a good vein. He pulls out a Sharpie. And he takes this Sharpie, and he's going to draw a circle around the vein he thinks he's found. That Sharpie hit my arm, and I passed smooth out. From the Sharpie on my arm, I passed smooth out. Like, basically, I didn't know I passed out. You don't know you pass out, you don't know you passed out. All I know is I come to, they got smelling salts under my nose, and
It smells like urine.
it smelled like urine. Yeah, the smelling salts smell like urine. They got smelling salts under my nose. They're feeding me granola bars and juice, and there's sweat just pouring off me onto the floor, and I passed out. So I had to come back a week later and do it over again, and I did okay with that. Bottom line, there wasn't anything wrong with my brain. So again, I am just absolutely petrified that this is the rest of my life, that I'm going to basically have this smell that haunts me. And all those things I loved, whether it's the coffee I drank, the meals I would have, I just need you to imagine this. Every meal you have, you sit down with somebody, it's just miserable. It just wasn't enjoyable because it was just the taste was haunting me. So later that summer, at the end of August, I go back to visit family, and I'm with my brother-in-law. And we were talking about how difficult and how challenging that year of COVID had been for everybody. And he made this statement. He said, and he knew my condition, he wasn't thinking he said this. He said, what I've appreciated is that we can just enjoy the small things again. Right? All these other things have been taken away from us. We just enjoy the small things. My brother-in-law also enjoys smell. It's kind of weird when we get together, we like put stuff in each other's nose and smell this, smell this. And he's like, I love just being able just to enjoy coffee in the morning, just to be able to sit there in my home and not have to rush off anywhere and just enjoy coffee. And the meals I get to have with my family and just being able to enjoy those meals. And as he was saying those things, I was thinking, that's what I'm taking from me. I don't have that even. And when people talk about in COVID, just like, I'm ready for things to get back to normal, I think they meant normal, like getting to do the fun things in life that we all got to do, whether it be travel, whether it be get-togethers, or whether it be sporting events, whether it be being on a college campus. We missed that. And when we talk about things getting back to normal, we're talking about that, with those things. I got to the point where I said, I want things to be normal again. And that means I just want to be able to smell coffee, to drink coffee, and just to be able to enjoy a meal. Just that little thing. Well, fortunately, and again, I don't know what it was. I hope I never have to experience that again. Fortunately, over the fall, it kept getting better and better and better and better. And by the time we got into October, into November, I pretty much somehow cycled out of that smell, taste that was haunting me. And then Thanksgiving shows up. And we're saying, what are you thankful for this year? Do you do that with your families? Kind of go around and say, what are you thankful for? All of a sudden, dummy, I'm just thankful that I can drink coffee and that I can enjoy a meal. I'm just thankful for that gift of being able to just experience the things that I took completely for granted my entire life. And so that was just a really meaningful Thanksgiving for me to be thankful for that. And after that, it cast into new light one of my favorite books in the Christian scriptures. So there's this book, I don't know if anybody's read it before. It's the book of Ecclesiastes. It's actually in the Hebrew scriptures. Have you read Ecclesiastes before? Yep. I just saw a light on your face. Yeah. It's one of my favorite books. And it's weird this is one of my favorite books because it's quite depressing when you kind of read it, right? If anybody's read it, it's like, yeah, it's like, things are pretty meaningless in life. Like, you can work really hard, you can try to be a righteous person, you should be a wise person, you should be a righteous person, but you're going to die. And the person who's wicked and the fool, they're going to die too, and you're basically going to end up in the same place. Dead. And furthermore, you can be really, really wise, really successful, really apply yourself and really strive towards the good. And you can look around and see others who aren't doing that, and they'll be more successful than you. And that kind of talks about life, right? Sometimes, like, wow, this person just isn't righteous, isn't good, isn't pursuing good, isn't pursuing good. And they actually do quite well in life, it seems. And so it seems like there's just unevenness that gets put out there in Ecclesiastes. It can be quite depressing sometimes reading it. But what's interesting about that book is 4 times throughout the book, there's this version of a phrase or version of a few sentences that are put in there. And they come up 4 different times, and it's basically a version of this. Given the context of what seems to be this meaningless striving after the wind, as Ecclesiastes puts it. It's this verse. I'm just going to read one of them, but it captures the essence of these 4 times that this idea is mentioned. It says, I know that there's nothing better for them than to be happy and enjoy themselves as long as they live. Moreover, it is God's gift, and there's that word, gift. It is God's gift that all should eat and drink and take pleasure in all their toil. And that idea of, and I've never thought of it this way, a gift from God to be able to eat and to drink. And eating and drinking involves not only the pleasures of the food and the drink, but also being with someone else, right? Being at the table with somebody else in fellowship, and eating and drinking. And to enjoy the work that God has given us to do. And so, really, what happened for me is I began to see that actually those little things, and we always talk about taking little things for granted, but for me it was very real. Those little things that I've had 48 years of my life not thinking much about were taken from me, and I missed them. And when they came back to me, I saw them being given back as a gift. That's kind of what Ecclesiastes says. These are gifts from God to be able to enjoy eating and drinking and the work we have to do. And so it just kind of basically changed my perspective on the idea of gift. And then the response to gift is that of gratitude. So last Thanksgiving, I was deeply thankful for just being able to Thanksgiving. I was deeply grateful for just being able to enjoy those little things of eating and drinking and being with others and enjoying meals together. And I want that spirit, I guess, of thankfulness to continue for me and for, I guess, all of us as we enter into this 2022 Thanksgiving season. So.
I think it's back. Hello. All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Stockdale. Can we get another round of applause?